Good evening, everybody. So we are very happy to see you, and we are very happy again to launch our English Without Borders Network Thursday series of webinars. And today we are very happy to introduce our host, uh, Jennifer Rice, who will talk about growth mindset in the language classroom. And just before we get started, I would like to remind our followers via Zoom and on Facebook that you have an opportunity to get an e-certificate by attending all 7 Thursday webinars, which started last week, and still you can attend them and continue attending till August 26th. And right after we finish today's webinar, we will share with you this link to complete online quizzes. And as soon as you take online quiz, please make sure that you get to correct answers. And so please feel free to join and also to share this information among other teachers and also other practitioners and learners of English. So today we are going to talk about growth mindset in the language classroom, and we are very happy to welcome Jennifer Rice. Jennifer Rice has been an instructor at the University of Oregon for over 13 years, where she focuses on teaching academic reading and speaking skills to university English language learners and designing evidence-based student-centered online classes. She also teaches online for the U.S. Department of State's Online Professional English Network, OPEN. For several years, she lived and taught at universities in South Korea and Japan. She has traveled to over 15 countries all over the world to explore different cultures and to present information to other teachers of English through national conferences and as English language specialist with the U.S. Department of State. She lives with her husband and young daughter in the countryside surrounding Eugene, Oregon, where she enjoys hiking, backpacking, playing volleyball, canoeing, cooking, and learning how to live off the land. So this part is most exciting. And today again, Jennifer will be sharing growth mindset in the language classroom, and she will just give us a big opportunity how to use teaching skills to growth mindset in the language classroom. Thank you very much. Now I'm giving the floor to Jennifer Rice. And please, dear participants, you can leave your questions to our speaker in the chat box or in the comment box via Facebook and Zoom, and we will pass them to our speaker. Jennifer, welcome. Greetings from EVB, and please, the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nasiba. You said very nice things about me. I'm really excited to be here today and meet with you all. It's very early in the morning here, but I am excited to share with you a little bit about growth mindset. So I'm hoping you can all see my screen now. Can I have a thumbs up or something so that I know? Yes? Okay, good. All right. I wanted to take just a tiny bit of time today to talk about, or just think about, if you had time to learn a completely new skill, what would that be? So just think about that in your brain. And as we are talking today during our discussion, I want you to keep that in mind, because when we talk about growth mindset, we really have to think about when we learn new things. That's when growth mindset becomes really important. And so for me, I would really like to learn how to do aerial silks acrobatics, where the silks hang from the ceiling and you climb up them and flip around and wrap them around yourself. That is a new skill that I would love to learn. And so I'm just wondering if you could share with me really quickly what you would like to learn in the chat box. So go ahead and take a couple seconds. People are feeling shy today, maybe. Oh, yes, belly dancing. I love it. Think out of the box. How to think out of the box. That is a really difficult skill to develop, I think. Self-awareness, yes. I think we could all use a little bit more of that. Okay, so even if you haven't shared in the chat box, that's okay. Just keep that in mind as we go about our presentation today, because like I said, growth mindset is always tied to learning. Okay, so let's see. We have some goals today for this workshop, and first of all, I hope that you'll understand literature on growth mindset and how it relates to student learning. And also, I hope that you'll learn how to improve your student motivation through class design decisions. It's all tied together. And we have some objectives specifically that you can identify new opportunities to support a growth mindset in your English classes, and identify ways in which you have a fixed or a growth mindset about students and how that impacts the classroom. So let's learn about what these things are: fixed mindset and growth mindset. We are going to have some interactions today. There will be a chat interaction, polling, and also I hope that at sometimes you'll take some notes for yourself to refer back to later, especially because there's a quiz afterward. Okay, the first activity that I would like to do is have you find out where you are on the scale of mindset. Are you toward a fixed mindset or are you toward a growth mindset? So go ahead and answer these statements for yourself and then tally up your scores, total up your scores to see what your score is. You don't need to share your score in the chat. Just write it down for yourself. Okay, about 10 more seconds, and then I'm going to show you how your score compares to the rankings here. Okay, so hopefully you have a number now, a total for you right now at this moment. And I'd like you to compare it here. What is your current mindset? And again, you don't need to share. This is just something I want you to be aware of. And the important thing here is that we realize we can change. So today, if you are at a very strong fixed mindset, for example, my hope is that by the end of this workshop, you will think about trying to move toward the other end of the spectrum, toward the growth mindset. And we're going to talk about why that would be important for your English classes. This is all based on research from Carol Dweck. Maybe you've heard of her. This is not new, actually. This is from the 1970s. But researchers have really tapped into her research lately and explored how it impacts students in the classroom in various settings. And so she did a lot of groundbreaking work back in the 70s. Okay, so first of all, a fixed mindset is believing that intelligence is something that you are born with and that it cannot be changed. And it is a detriment to learning. So it is something that we do not want to have. So if you scored low today in your initial assessment, that's okay, because everybody is growing and learning. And we're going to try to work toward being on that growth mindset end of the chart. So a growth mindset is believing that intelligence is developed through time and effort. So it's important for promoting learning. Growth mindset means you can grow, you have the ability to change. And we all do have that. But what we think up here really matters. And what our teachers think up here really matters about our learning. So I have a Zoom poll here, and I would like to ask you, what are some examples of growth mindset? So I'm going to launch this, and we'll see how everybody is doing on this so far. Let's see if I can find the right question. And sorry about that. Here we go. Go ahead and choose all that you think apply. I'm starting to see the answers come in now. Okay, so from my end, it's looking like most people are understanding the concept of what growth mindset is. I'll give you another 10 seconds or so to click in your answers. Okay, I'm going to end the poll now. So if you want to do a last minute click, go for it. All right, we got one last minute click. Excellent. And I'm going to share the results with you so that you can see. 45% of people think that the first one is growth mindset. And we're going to talk about why that is not true. So that first one is definitely not growth mindset. Remember, growth mindset is something that we can change, we can do something about our intelligence. And so if you have the feeling, or your learners have the feeling, that they only have a certain amount of intelligence and there really isn't anything they can do about it, or they can't change it very much, that would not be a growth mindset mentality. That would be a fixed mindset. So that first one looks like we have a bit of confusion about. The others are looking pretty good. I'm going to stop sharing the poll right now, and I'm going to move on to the rest of our PowerPoint here. Bear with me. Okay, so here are the answers for that first poll. So A and B are examples of a fixed mindset. If you're not having challenges that feel like opportunities, then you're thinking in a fixed mindset way. And so we need to think of challenges as an opportunity to learn instead of something that's going to be so frustrating. Feedback is something that helps you learn. It's constructive. So that's a growth mindset thing. I can learn any new skill if I have enough time and practice. Yes, that's a great way to think about growth mindset. When I'm challenged, I end up growing more as a person. Excellent. That's what we want our learners to feel like in our classes. Making mistakes is how I learn. We all know as English teachers that making mistakes is inevitable. Nobody's perfect. And so we need to really embrace that in our classes and let our learners know that it's okay. It's wonderful if they make a mistake, because that shows that they're learning. And we'll talk about ways we can do that. And then the last one here, your intelligence is something about you that you cannot change very much. That is definitely a fixed mindset, not a growth mindset. Okay, so pretty good overall for just starting here. When we talk about growth mindset and fixed mindset, we can think about the four things in the middle of the screen: our self-image, defining success, efforts and challenges, and feedback, and how these two mindsets relate to these things. And so as a teacher and as a learner, we want to be on the growth mindset side of this. We don't want our students' self-images tied to their abilities and thinking that, well, how I am now is how I am, and I'm not going to change. That's a really fixed mindset. And so we need to help our learners get to that other side of the continuum. As far as defining success, we want our learners to think about growth and think about learning and think about challenges and effort as part of learning. And challenges are a good thing. I have a young daughter, and she is really struggling with growth mindset. She is toward the fixed mindset right now. She, as far as effort and challenges, she sometimes avoids challenges because she doesn't want to fail. She doesn't want to make a mistake. And I'm trying to move her and me more toward growth mindset in that. And it's not easy. This is not easy. This is work that we have to do. And so I really encourage you to just start thinking in this way, and things will start changing, but it won't be like that. Okay. All right. So right now, I just want you to think, you could write in the chat if you'd like, about why we should encourage a growth mindset in our classes. So just really briefly, go ahead and do that. Okay, we've talked about it a little bit so far, and I just want to get more specific about how we can do this in our classes. So a fixed mindset discourages effort. We want our students to try really hard. We don't want them to just say, it's too hard, I'm not going to do it. Learning a language is really tricky, really difficult, and requires us to try and try again and try and try again and not give up. And if we don't get feedback about that learning and we're not accepting of that feedback, then it's really difficult to improve in learning a language. So we need to make sure that our learners equate mistakes or feedback with learning and not failure, as fixed mindset does. So we want to move away from this. And if we look at this vicious cycle of language anxiety, there was a paper published by a Canadian group of researchers recently. This is from 2020. And they are talking about how there is this cycle that happens when we're trying to learn a language, where we have this lack of competence in the language. We feel like, oh, I can't do this. My language isn't good enough. And then we start to get anxious about opportunities to use the language. And then we start avoiding those opportunities. We start rejecting any kind of association with that language. And then we don't see any improvement because we're not practicing that language. And so it's a cycle that keeps going unless we do something about it. And the research in this paper has shown that, over here in the purple box, that a strong growth language mindset can mitigate these negative effects, especially in students with lower English competence. So the students who have a lower English level right now in your classes are the ones who can benefit the most from this mentality, this mindset, thinking that they can improve and they will improve with effort. And it also, this research says that growth language mindsets may be able to break this vicious cycle. So instead of going around and around and around in this negative spiral, if we start helping our learners have more of a growth mindset, we can break it and help them move on and improve. Okay, So again, growth mindset, we're considering mistakes as an important part of the learning process. And that means that students can and will improve with effort. It seems so simple. It seems like a simple concept, but when we think about how we apply it in our classes and what it actually looks like, sometimes it gets a lot more difficult to actually do. So I'm gonna share with you a little bit more research here. This is the same researchers, one of the same researchers and another group, again from 2020. They did this study about the feedback that an instructor gives, and they broke it into ability consoling feedback or improvement oriented feedback, the kind of feedback that we as teachers give. So I want you to read these three things on the side here: the meta-lay theory, what ability consoling feedback is, and what improvement oriented feedback is, and then decide which do you think is true, A, B, or C, over here in the purple box. And I'm going to launch a poll for this in a minute. Okay, I'm going to launch the poll now, and you can click in A, B, or C. Okay, the results are starting to come in here. Just a couple more seconds. Okay, if you have a last minute answer you want to click in, go ahead. I'm going to end the poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. And I'm going to share the results with you. So the good thing is that everyone feels like the feedback that a teacher gives matters. That is very true. And this study actually was showing that improvement-oriented feedback results in more learners who felt that their teachers believed they could improve. So it's B. That was the answer for this feedback, this research. So I'm going to show you why. So the title of this research was, "Does my teacher believe I can improve?" That was the title of the article that was written. And it matters in the kind of feedback that we give as instructors, whether or not the students feel like you believe in them. And so if we have a growth mindset approach that our learners can improve and will improve if they try hard, and we truly believe that, then they feel more motivated to continue in their learning. So the quote here that I thought was key for this article is, "Meta-lay theory predicts learners' growth versus fixed mindsets and their need satisfaction, which can in turn influence important motivational outcomes, including learners' willingness to retake the English test that they failed, their confidence in using English, and the time they spend on reviewing the answer keys." So this really shows that how we give the feedback is really important. And this is not just in English, but also in the STEM sciences. This research has been applied. So I just want you to take a look at this. This is from an article in Science Advances, and it's with 15,000 students. So that's a big sample of students, and over 600 STEM courses. So STEM is science, technology, engineering, and math. So this is not English classes, but it's the same principle that applies. And this is over 150 faculty across 13 different fields. And they did some research about growth mindset versus fixed mindset and how it affects students. And looking at the graph here, you have student evaluation scores on the y-axis, and on the x-axis, you have the actual questions that the students were asked on the evaluation. And so I'd like you to choose what you think is true, A, B, or C, or what do you notice in this? Okay, so I'm gonna launch poll number 3 coming soon. And you can click in your answers. So either students preferred courses where instructors have a fixed mindset, students were inspired to learn more when instructors had growth mindset, or students perceived courses with a growth mindset as taking more time. Okay, a few more seconds. Ooh, I see people changing their minds. I like that. Okay, I'm gonna end it in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, and I'll share with you. The majority of us chose students were inspired to learn more when instructors had a growth mindset, and that is the correct answer. So let me close that out and get back to here. So the article title for this one was actually called STEM Faculty Who Believe Ability is Fixed Have Larger Racial Achievement Gaps and Inspire Less Student Motivation in Their Classes. So you can see just from the title what this article is all about. They shared the results in the title. So the answer for our poll was B. Students were inspired to learn more when instructors had a growth mindset. And another quote that I liked from this article was, students reported less motivation to do their best work in classes taught by faculty who endorsed more fixed mindset beliefs. So the way we think about our students affects everything. It affects their motivation. It affects their willingness to, improve on their tests. Just look at our feedback in general. When we give feedback on papers, it really is a powerful thing. And something that we haven't, as English teachers, at least in where I am, haven't really focused much of our attention on. So it's just starting to be really a hot topic here. Okay, we have another Zoom poll, and this is really specific now to what we can actually do in our language classrooms. So I want you to take a minute and think through these different choices. How do you think you could encourage growth mindset in your classes? And you can choose all of them that you think apply. So I'm going to launch the poll right now. I'll give you a hint that it's more than one. Okay, we've got almost half of the people answering so far. So I'm going to give a couple more seconds. Okay, so in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, I'm going to end that poll. And instead of sharing the results with you this time, I think I'm just going to go ahead with our PowerPoint and explain it. A lot of people were on track, and it seems like we have a little bit of confusion. So let's work through it. Here are the answers. The first one is definitely a way that you can encourage growth mindset in your class. You want to allow students time to improve their work before they submit it for a significant score. So those of us who are relying on just a big assessment, a big exam, a big test, and that's the student's chance to prove what they know, that is not necessarily going to build a growth mindset in your class. So we need to give the learners feedback on how they're doing and chances to improve that skill before they actually get a significant score on that assignment. So for example, if you're going to have them give a presentation, you don't want to only score them on that presentation one time in the class, but you want to give them chances to practice that presentation with each other, maybe make a recording of themselves and check that against some kind of checklist that you have, maybe even submit a practice presentation to you for a small score that then you give feedback on, and then they get to show you how they've improved when they actually give the final presentation that you want them to present. So that's just one example. There are many, many, many different ones that we could come up with. And if we had time, I'd put you in breakout rooms and have you talk about it. But we have a limited amount of time here. So that is one example. The second one here on the list, praise the first correct answer given. That is actually not going to help build a growth mindset in your class, because basically when you say good job to the first student who gave the answer, the rest of the students stop trying. And then what happens often is that that student is then the one that answers most of the questions, and the rest of the students don't have to think. They don't have to try. They kind of rely on that one student to do the answering for them. Brains turn off often when we do that. And so there are other techniques that we could use in the classroom instead of taking the first answer that's given. We could say, for example, partner up with someone and share with them your answer. And then as a group, I might call on you. And you could also say, I am going to call on the third person who raises their hand, so that multiple people need to raise their hand before you'll actually call on somebody. And that means that they need to think about it. They need to take time. Just giving them time to wait and think and process is really important for this. C here, ask who has the first question instead of do you have any questions. Just the rephrasing of that simple thing that we do all the time as teachers really makes a difference, because it assumes that people will have questions, and it welcomes questions as a normal part of the class, instead of saying, well, I said everything. Now, do you have any questions? Were you paying attention? A lot of times we set students up for being put on the spot, and in many cultures, if they ask a question, it's considered a negative thing, because it's like they weren't paying attention originally, and if they were, they shouldn't have any questions. So we want to turn that around, and we want to say, okay, question time. Who has the first one? And who has the second one? And who has the third one? Because that's going to invite our students to feel comfortable asking questions and realize they don't have to be perfect right away. D is very important because we praise efforts and results equally. So if our students are trying really hard, then that is a great place for us to just pause and say, you are all working so hard, and I just want to thank you for that, because it is not easy to learn a language and you're working very hard to do it. Something like that is going to set a growth mindset in your class, instead of after somebody gives a wonderful, perfect, grammatically correct sentence on the board that they wrote, and you say, oh my gosh, this is perfect, amazing. Then you're just praising the result, the perfectness, instead of the effort. So we want to move toward praising the effort and the result equally in our classes. And that shows students that it's okay to try hard and not get it correct. Telling students that the questions or the problems are easy is not very helpful, because then if they're struggling with it, they're thinking, oh, but the teacher said this is supposed to be easy. Why is it so hard for me? And so not making that judgment, but instead saying, this might be difficult for you, but I know you can do it. That is a more growth mindset approach to saying something like that in the classroom. We're on F here. Welcome student mistakes as formative feedback on what still needs to be practiced. Very important. I have a colleague who is now thanking students every time they make a mistake in her class. So they will volunteer an answer and it will be wrong. And she will say, thank you so much for that answer. It's not right. And we're going to talk about why. And then she is able to find those misconceptions that students have and talk about them for the whole class. And it makes students feel good about making that mistake, because she's actually thanking them in a sincere, genuine way. And it's hard to make that switch, I think, for a lot of us, but it's something that we can work toward, definitely. Let's see. G and H are all about what we're doing in the classroom. If we are making mistakes on purpose and letting students catch them and correct us, that can be really powerful. That can show them that making mistakes is a learning thing and that it's okay. And that we as teachers are trying new techniques, new ways of teaching, new things that we don't usually do. That can show students that you can try new things and it's okay. And sometimes they might not work. And we can point that out to our learners and say, that wasn't really great, right? Let's not do that again. We learned. So just taking the opportunities to do that on a more big picture scale can improve the growth mindset in your class. Allowing students to teach someone something that they have learned already can be very powerful and make them feel like they know what they're doing and they can do it. And especially with guidance and practice and feedback about how to do that, that can be a really powerful thing for our learners, no matter their level. No matter their level, everybody is able to teach somebody something. So just fostering that in our classes can be really powerful. And then the last one here, if we rely on individual volunteers to answer our questions, then we go back to basically what B was here and praising the first correct answer given, because usually the volunteers, the first ones to raise their hands, are the ones who have all the answers. And so we want to try some other teaching techniques that let students communicate with each other before an answer is given, or possibly we use some kind of like random picking of names or groups so that we don't just rely on that one or two volunteers in our classes, because then it gives everybody an equal opportunity, an equal chance, no matter if they're going to get it correct or not, to participate in our classes. Okay, so a growth mindset might look like setting really high expectations for your students and then letting them know that they can do it with effort. It might look like saying that tasks are a bit difficult, but you know that your students can succeed. These are all ways to foster a growth mindset in your classes. Encouraging the students to reflect on what they don't yet know, and then to create a study plan to make that happen. So how are they going to get there? They don't know it yet? Great, that's no problem. How are you going to get there? Let's work on it together. And then giving all students an equal chance to meaningfully contribute in the class. That is what growth mindset looks like in a classroom. Okay, so I want you to think for 15 seconds or so and then type in the chat, what words could you add to the end of these sentences to make them more of a growth mindset approach? What word? I hear my daughter say these sentences sometimes. I can't do it. Okay, I'm seeing some ideas here in the chat. All right. I can't do it, but I'm sure you can figure out how to do it. I will try. I can't do it, but I will do it. Okay, I will try. Yes, good, good. Okay, you're on the right track here, but I have to do it. I like that. Yes, push yourself. Yes, good. So the word that I had in mind was yet. I'm just not good at it yet. That means I'm going to try again, right? I'm going to keep trying because I know that I can be good at it with effort. I can't do it yet. I cannot figure this out yet. I don't have the ability to do this yet. So that implies that we are going to keep trying, keep learning. Making mistakes is okay. All right, good. So we're all on the right path here. And I really loved this quote. This is a quote from Carol Dweck, again, the person who brought about growth mindset in the first place, and a colleague of hers. The way that teachers and parents react to learners' failures predicted learners' mindsets. So the next time you have an opportunity to react to a mistake that a learner makes in your class, think about doing it with a growth mindset. It can make a huge difference in your classes, and what we say matters. Really matters how we say it and what we say. It impacts our students a lot more than we might think. Okay, so who has the first question? You can go ahead and type it in the chat. I know we're also on Facebook Live, so if we get something from Facebook Live as a question, just let me know. Or I'd love to hear what else you might do to encourage a growth mindset in your classes. So if you want to share something or ask a question, now is the time. Okay, I see a question here. How can we control the students' impact on each other? Good question, good question. And I think that that would start from day one when you start with your classes, building community and having people feel comfortable with each other and safe in the environment is really important. And so that starts on day one. Taking the time to build that community, do some teamwork, set the standards of how you expect everyone to treat each other, and then really being pretty focused on that. Not letting anything slip, I think, is really important. Okay, let me see here. What is the main difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset? Okay, so that is basically fixed mindset. You think that you cannot improve, that you have this born ability and that's all you will ever have no matter what. So you're not going to get better at anything because you just don't have the ability. That's a fixed mindset. The growth mindset would be, I feel like I'm not so good at learning English, but if I work hard and I make some mistakes along the way and get some feedback, then I can improve and I can get better, and I will. It's not going to be easy, but I'm going to keep trying at it. That's a growth mindset. You're feeling like all of the mistakes you make and the feedback you get, it's all about growing and learning instead of about failing. So that's the difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. And there are a little bit more differences, but that's the main idea. Okay. Let's see what else here. If your students hear for the first time the phrase, "it is good to make mistakes," does it change their mindset, and in what way? So good question. I don't think that this is a very quick thing if they hear it once, but it's a culture that you create in your classes. It's something that you need to build and nurture as you are a teacher in the classroom. So you need to keep it in your mind, and then every opportunity you have a choice how you react. You can react in this way, you can react in this way. And what we want to do is think about the reaction that will be on the growth mindset end of the continuum. So if you have a tendency to react in a fixed mindset response, then just work on it. Work on changing to a growth mindset. It's not going to be easy for you. It's not going to be easy for your learners, but it is worth it, definitely. So just make an effort and keep trying. It won't be a quick fix. I'll give examples from my life how I've started learning. That's a great way to talk about growth mindset, that it was hard for you and you made all these mistakes and it wasn't easy, but you kept trying and you kept doing it. There are lots of stories that I'm sure we can relate to our students about that, and have them share too, not just in the language realm, but in anything that they've tried, riding a bike, right? Things like that. Okay. How to help adult students who come with tight, fixed mindsets. Yes. Like I said, it's the same as with younger learners. Keep trying. Every time you have a response to give, try to make it on that growth mindset. Try to set an example. Talk about it openly. Teach them about growth mindset. You can teach young kids about growth mindset. You can teach older people about growth mindset. Having them add the word "yet" to the end of their sentences. It's all part of it. Okay, I usually encourage my students to celebrate each other's successes. Good. And you could also have them celebrate their efforts, right? Not only their successes, but also their efforts. You tried really hard. Good. Some tips to encourage. What are some tips to encourage growth mindset? I'm going to go back on my slides, I think, to that. Sorry, that's not what I wanted to do. So to answer this question, tips to encourage growth mindset, I would say any of the things on the screen that are not crossed out are ways to encourage growth mindset here. Yeah, don't be afraid of making mistakes. Yes. If we don't make mistakes, we don't improve. Yes, thank you. Definitely a good concept to understand. How do you measure progress? Good question. So if we're saying mistakes are good, mistakes are fine, no problem. We can measure progress by having students keep track of what they feel comfortable with at this point. And then if we're talking about a term, for example, at the beginning of the term, you can have sort of an inventory of their skills, what they can do now, and then compare it to something at the end, what they can do at the end of the term. And that will show you progress for sure. But you can also do something more formal, like, they have some sort of skill that they've been working on, and let's say a presentation again, and they do a practice presentation at the beginning of the unit, and they're really not so great, right? And then they get a lot of feedback, and they do practices and skill building and throughout a couple weeks, and then they record that presentation at the end, and they can compare the two. You can have an assignment that actually has them compare their initial presentation with their final presentation. What's the difference? At the beginning of units, I often have, or when there's going to be a presentation in the class, I often have learners just on that first day when I'm introducing it, stand up, go in the front of the classroom and introduce themselves with their name and the major that they're studying at the university. And just standing in front of people and saying their name and their major is really hard for some learners. But after many weeks, probably I think about 4 or 5 weeks of skill building and practice and feedback, they give a formal presentation, and then they reflect on what it felt like to stand up there at the beginning and what it felt like to stand up there at the end. And it's really different. So something as simple as that. Okay, leadership tasks, yep, to measure their progress, definitely. Good, motivational videos. Have you got any experience of changing fixed mindset into growth mindset? If yes, what challenges have you met? So I'm assuming that you're thinking about doing this as a question for your learners, and that's great. Great. Okay. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself here. I'm noticing the time, and I'm just wondering if there are 1 or 2 more questions here, or just anything you want to share, like what's one new specific thing that you will do to encourage growth mindset in your next class? If you have an idea, maybe from this workshop or from something you were doing before. And what do you still want to know about it? Can I share with how I'm helping my daughter? So the way that I help my daughter, she's 7.5. And the way that I'm helping her is mostly showing her that trying is a good thing. And so when I see her struggle and give up, I talk about how she feels frustrated, and that's okay, and that it's not easy. And then I also praise when she does try something and doesn't give up. And I don't praise the result, I praise the trying. So I say, you tried really hard at that. I'm so proud of you because you didn't give up. That kind of thing. I don't try to praise the end result. Also, I use the word yet a lot. So when she screams out in frustration, I can't do this. And I just say, yet. And so she gets a little annoyed with me, but I think it's getting in there, right? And there are some things that she's willing to be persistent with now that she wasn't before. So I think it's just a matter of continuing to do it, to give feedback as a parent in the right way and move her in the direction that I know is best for her learning. Inspire students to grow. Yes, that is the whole key, right? Definitely.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Jennifer. Such a nice presentation.
Thank you.
I'm learning myself, and my keyword will be yeah.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's definitely a good one.
From today, yeah. So this yet word helps us, to push us to try more and to do more efforts, right?
Yes.
Okay, so thank you very much. And
Yeah.
to say thank you on behalf of all our participants, they are spreading the word of gratitude. And dear participants on Facebook and Zoom, now we are going to share the link to the quiz because as I mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, we are going to grant e-certificates for attending 7 webinars and for completing quiz. So please go quickly through the link we provide you and answer the questions to make sure that you have answered like at least 2 correct answers. And using this moment, I would like to remind that today we had our great speaker. So she encouraged, inspired, and made us to believe that we can do our better version. First of all, as a teachers, and we can also just inspire our students to develop their better version as well. So thank you, Jennifer, for such a great presentation.